When you are in the middle of a conflict, it might be difficult sometimes to get the other person to listen to you. You say one thing, they just ignore it, and you're kind of clueless about how to get their attention back here. But in this video, we will see 5 simple phrases you can use at any time that have a very high chance to get the person to calm down and even maybe change their mind, no matter how irritated they seemed to be so far. The first one, I will tell you 2 things that will make you change your mind. That might be a bit direct, but the point of that phrase is not really to make them change their mind, so to speak, even if that is contained in the content of the words used in that phrase, but it is to make them pause and listen for a second. I would argue that 70% of problems in communication don't come from the fact you don't have the right arguments, it comes from the fact that the person you are interacting with does not even wish to let you speak, does not even listen, and just projects their own agenda and intentions on what you say. So the concept of clearing their mind, coming back to the basics of hypnotic communication, when you can suppress the conscious, the critical factor, then any hypnotic phenomenon or even hypnotic command and suggestion lands more properly and easily into their mind. So when you can interrupt their trail of thoughts, known as a pattern interrupt, you can simply get them more easily to listen and to agree with you even because they stop projecting on you all the garbage they think you mean, or all the garbage they think you should be about, or that what you say should be about, and in the end maybe you don't have a real conflict, you may just be into projections. That person may project on you negative things, you may project on them negative things too. If both of you start getting a clear mind about the conversation at hand, maybe the conflict is going to be resolved much more easily. So the point in saying, I will tell you 2 things that may make you change your mind, we don't care what those 2 things are, it is just to open a loop in their mind with the number 2. It is also known in the Milton model as the ordinal number presupposition, just a slightly technical thing, to get the person's mind to shut down for a second and wait until you have finished to finally process what you said. If you don't do this, sometimes they are just waiting for their turn to speak without even listening to you. And if you want a complete methodology about how to use the pattern interrupt in a conversation, you have the chapter 2 of my book Magical Linguistics, contained in the description box down below, that will show you exactly the best ways I have used personally to get people to shut down mentally whenever I had something important to say. Number 2 phrase, Number 2, I used to think like you, and there's only one thing that made me change my mind. So you are using the parallel thinking, the mirroring of the person's mind onto yours. By using the pacing and leading with saying, I used to think like you, I used to be convinced about this political ideology myself, exactly like you are right now, and only one thing, narrowing down to one option, only one thing made me change my mind. And the point here again is not even the argument you are going to use to try convincing that person, maybe in the end they won't like your argument anyway, but by describing your own experience prior to this conversation, you are kind of painting an image in their mind of what might happen to them. When I try to tell you that there is one choice you should make because I tell you should do this, maybe you're just gonna tell me, just no, fuck off, and I don't know you, you're just a guy on YouTube, just why the hell should I listen to you? Fine. Now, if instead of trying to force your mind like this, if I just lead your mind smoothly with a story of my own, of something that happened to me, first of all, considering the fact you are not me, it will be much more difficult to refute what I say because you haven't been into my life. And secondly, your mind might be more inclined to engage with the type of change I want you to engage into, whether into your political ideology, into the opinion you have on some social media figure, whatever. Anything I want to convince you about, it will be easier if I talk about my own experience experience first and why I did agree with you at some point and then changed my mind, and telling you how I changed my mind and why, then you may still not agree with me in the end, but you will build some nuance in your mind. As I like to say, the best debates to me are not the ones where you have one louder mouth than the other. The best debates for me personally are the ones where I can't make up my mind about who do I side with, who do I agree with. If I can't make up my mind, whereas I already thought I had an opinion on this topic, then I know I am in front of two brilliant communicators, because both of them can bring sufficient nuance to cause me to think again about what I thought was true. Which leads us into phrase number 3, that would be true only if. You can say that the person might have a good point in the conversation, but you tell them, you instruct their conscious mind to elaborate on the principle that this might be true, they might be right, you might agree with them, you would have agreed with them only if. And at the end of this phrase, you add up something, you point out to a flaw, to a problem, to a bad thing they did in the past, or to some conflict you have noticed, or some lack of logic you have noticed in their own reasoning, or to some negative experience they have caused in the past. Because anything negative can be used to discredit the value of an opinion, and politicians do this absolutely every day on each side. The point is not to seek truth here, it is to resolve conflict with one person specifically in your personal life or at your job, but somebody who's annoying around you. When we talk about bigger political things, I won't get into the idea there is one version of the truth. I think it is just a force doctrine. In my opinion, the person with the strongest force just impose what they think is true anyway. In the personal context, with your personal life, you have much more control than if you try to change a whole nation. And in your personal life, you can change people's minds more easily. And I would say this is a duty when somebody is really trying to cause damage in your life through too many conflicts. At that point, you can reduce their mind to silence for a second by saying things like this: I could agree with you only if you hadn't caused so much damage to my life previously. Or I could agree with you, Johnny, about this meeting if only you hadn't lost a lot of money for the company. Let's say you are the employer and this is an employee of yours. You know, Johnny, your idea is great for the meeting, and I could agree with you only if you hadn't lost so much money in the past. That will recalibrate the levels of authority that person thinks they have over you. And I know this one is a bit more harsh, so definitely only use it with somebody who is really irritating for you. Avoid using that one with somebody you just have a some minor trouble with, but not a serious conflict. Leading us to number 4, if it is a lighter conflict, not something too harsh, you might say, you know, I don't want to appear harsh, therefore, I do not want to appear harsh, but I want to tell you something that might be difficult to hear. Here you can see a lot of pacifying language coming from the Milton model again. How can you soften the phrases you say? How can you soften your dialogue so that even some irritated conscious mind or irritated critical factor in the mind of your interlocutor does not overreact and bark like a dog just because you said one thing? By using that kind of softening language, you know, I don't want to appear harsh, so you are preparing their mind to eventually hear something uncomfortable. I just want to tell you something difficult to hear. And then you pause. You let them process the emotional preparation for what you are going to say. And that is very useful when you have to make, for example, some negative feedback to some of your employees, let's say, and they don't really inclined usually to hear negative feedback without overreacting to what you say or taking it badly somehow. In that case, you can just pacify and soften their defensive reflexes to argue with you by saying in advance, this is going to be uncomfortable to hear. Can you process it, yes or no? And the final one will be similar to the last. The phrase number 5 is therefore, can you accept hearing something important without getting mad? So by saying without getting mad, obviously you are presupposing that this important thing you have to say is not a really pleasant thing to hear. Maybe not in the first place at least. But saying, can you accept hearing? Accept hearing is an embedded command, so you are preparing their mind again to tolerate the potential verbal assault or the potential negative connotation to what you're going to say. You're preparing their mind to ease down the potential pressure and resistance they might otherwise have had against you. And you say, can you accept hearing something important? That might be anything, but something important without getting mad. Something important appeals to more attention. If it is something important, even if I didn't tell you anything yet about what it is, at least your mind gets more prepared to become focused on what I say. And finally, because of the social desirability bias, we naturally are inclined to respond positively whenever somebody is expecting some quality behavior from us. So if I tell you, I want to give you some exercise to develop your skills, do you think you can be a smart person? Do you think you can do that? Obviously, especially if there are people around watching, you are going to be tempted to tell me yes, because you want to be accepted by the majority, like most human beings want to. Therefore, using those short phrases will increase the propensity of the person responding positively to the feedback you are going to give to them about what you think of themselves, about what they have just done wrong in your opinion. They are more likely to respond positively to what you are going to say if you start by this phrase. Can you accept, Johnny, hearing something important without getting mad? And if you want to increase naturally your capacities with influential language and make sure those language patterns become part of how you communicate naturally every day, you have a document down below called The 7 Steps to Master Sleight of Mouth. It is a series of language patterns designed to be used in any conversation you have every day for maximum benefit. You can use them at any time with any individual you have trouble communicating usually. They are tailored for different situations and you can use them right away. This is down below in the description. Thanks a lot for watching and waiting for the next one. I tell you, good luck.